soon as I do that.
You did get my stuff, right?
Yeah, but I didn't get Calvin's and I didn't get Dickies. So I couldn't do it. I got yours. As soon as I hit the gavel, you can start reading. As soon as I hit the gavel, you can start reading.
Madam Chair, I move that the closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the provisions of Virginia Freedom of Information Act as required by Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, and certify that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second.
Okay.
Did you want me to call it that? You want me to call it?
Okay, voting's open.
Okay, I want to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight, and I'm going to ask Ms. Julia Perkins to lead us in the pledge and the moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we would want to welcome Mathis Kramer, the Smithfield High School Salutatorian, and Ms. Briggs is going to give an introduction.
Mathis is joining us tonight. He has a presentation on addressing mental health in the school environment. This time, Mathis is going to be at the table over here. He has his presentation up on the screen, and we appreciate if you would give your attention to Mathis. And you're welcome to take your mask off.
Okay, so I think I should start off with just going over parts of my speech again, or just kind of summarizing it. My graduation speech basically covered mental health and its importance, how it affects society at large, from anxiety, mass shootings, depression, suicide, and social cleavages. And so today, I would like to talk about how do we actually address mental health in a school environment. And so when it comes to mental health, it's really not about having all of the specific answers. It's about promoting a culture of listening and caring for one another. And in order to do this, we need two things. First, in order for a culture of listening and caring for one another, we need a culture of openness. We need a culture in which students aren't afraid to tell people how they feel, whether it be their students, their fellow students, or their teachers or counselors. And in order to do this, I suggest to have assemblies where we have speakers that can talk to and connect with the students about their life struggles and actually being able to relate to the students so that they know it's something that everyone goes through. And also, I feel like teachers and counselors should simply talk about it more in classrooms when you're having counseling sessions, because if we talk about it more simply, then the students will be able to talk about it more. It'll be out there. The stigma against mental health won't be as great. An example of this is after my speech, I've had multiple of my friends come to me with their own problems in life, and it was really touching because a lot of the stuff I went through too. So the second thing that we need to do to promote a culture of listening and caring for one another is to redefine our problem-solving approach. when students act out and when students fight and have bad behaviors in class, a lot of the time it's because they have emotional unrest. They're dealing with problems outside of school. So if we were to understand these students, the ones that give you the most problems, the ones that it's hardest to care about them, they're the ones that need the understanding the most. So if we were to understand these students and not punish them and try to reverse what they were doing wrong and make them realize it through a process called restorative justice, which focuses on healing rather than punishment, and it involves the primary stakeholders in the situation, so the victim, the offenders, and the affected community, in methods such as victim offender mediation, family group conferencing, and sentencing circles. It lets them all play a part in determining the best way to go about dealing with that student who did that offense, dealing with the offender. And as you can see, youth that were participating in restorative justice programs had a greater perception of fairness, more satisfied with restorative justice programs, and less supportive toward delinquency. Victims that took part in the restorative justice program also had a greater perception of fairness, and they were more satisfied with the restorative justice program that improved attitudes toward the juvenile, more prone to forgiveness, and more likely to think that the outcome is just. So it's benefiting everyone involved. And the last point might be the most important point. There was a moderate reduction in future delinquent behavior relative toward juvenile court processing. So these kids, through this program, are actually learning what they're doing wrong, and they can improve their character and move forward. And you might think this is only for like real crimes. Well, Washington's Lincoln High School did this because they had students with history of behavioral problems and substance abuse. And their community around the school, in the school, and even the students themselves reported that the students were more respectful and more kind-hearted. So, and that's really what mental health is all about in school. You know, it won't just help the students, it'll help the teachers, it'll help the counselors, and it'll help the community that the school is located in. And also, one more point that I'd like to make about promoting a culture of listening and caring for one another is to allow students to have more say in how schools are run. Because by giving students more power in the school's government, it shines light on an insight that is oftentimes undervalued. And it increases the trust between the teachers and the students, and the whole student body too. Because if you see, you know, a person in your class who's respectful and is actually a good role model, working with the staff to make their school a better place, then that empowers every student to do the same. The second step is to establish support systems for struggling students. So a problem with a lot of students are that, you know, they don't even want to admit that they're struggling. Now, hopefully, a culture of openness will reduce this occurrence, but reduce the frequency of this occurrence. But oftentimes, peers, my students, or the students, they can't relate to the teachers, so it's hard to go to the teachers for help. So I suggest introducing a peer-based support system with a handful of voluntary, respectful, successful students in their academic and athletic endeavors, and most of all, happy, so that they can give advice to the students who are struggling, because they, more than anyone else, can relate to them and provide relative support. And for the emotional breakdowns in class that me and my fellow students right there have definitely witnessed, whether it be from anxiety, stress, or personal problems, I do think that there should be a calming center where students can go to meditate and just collect themselves and learn how to healthily cope with their emotions. There could be guided meditations that they could listen to that specifically are made to relieve stress, anxiety, whatever they're dealing with, so that they can move forward and live a life where they know how to cope with their own feelings. And because it's not helpful just telling students to calm down, because often they're crying for a reason. Oh, not that yet. Another thing I would suggest is having a few excusable mental health days, because, a pediatric study of young people found visits to the ER for suicidal thoughts, it rose in mid-fall and mid-spring and dropped to its lowest point in summer. And the study's authors themselves pointed out that this trend shows the amount of stress and strain that students experience in school. So having a few absences where students can stay at home and cope with them and cope with their feelings and learn with parental permission will increase communication between the students and the parents about how they feel, because a lot of time that's a huge obstacle in students' lives. And punishing students, punishing students that don't even want to get out of bed in the morning is wrong. Because it demotivates them even more. And these days, the amount of absences that the students take, if you tally those up year by year, you can measure the school's progress when it comes to mental health. The third step is to teach students about the science behind mental health and ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. Not only is it the right thing to do, because it allows students to better understand themselves and what they're feeling, and really the science, like the neuroscience behind thinking habits and the negativity bias, it empowers them to take a scientific approach to their own happiness. And not only is this the right thing to do, but we are legally obligated to do so. Virginia's law mandates that mental health education be incorporated into physical education and health curricula for 9th and 10th graders. So, and this should come as no surprise, because it inspires students to change their perspective and change their negative habits going forward when they're in school and when they leave school, because for a lot of students, this is the last period of education they have before they go out into the real world. And if they don't know how to be happy now, then who's to say how they're going to know how to be happy following school? So here's an example of a class that I would love to be taught to 9th graders. It's a 10-week course, and it averages to 18 hours. So if you were to teach 3 days a week, just 30 minutes, 3 days a week in the health and PE class before it starts for 10 weeks, that's 1.5 hours a week times 10, that's 15 hours. So that's 15 hours out of 18. That class is almost done. Give the students 3 hours of homework, and then maybe they'll share reviews such as these people did. One person said that they loved the practical rewiring assignments that helped me with understanding what really makes us happy. Not only did this course change my life perspective, but it enriched the lives of people around me, which is exactly our goal here. And Mario wrote, "This is an outstanding course. I was able to change it to a more positive and productive mindset," which is good for academics. It's good for everything in a person's life. And back to the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. These are potentially traumatic events, including experiences of violence, abuse, neglect, witnessing violence, having a family member attempt or die by suicide, and growing up in a household with substance misuse, mental health problems, or instability due to parental separation, or household members being in jail or prison. 61% of American people surveyed across the 25 states had at least one of these. 1 in 6 had 4 or more. And these ACEs, the more a person has, the more at risk you are of injury, STIs, teen pregnancy, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and suicide, just to name a few. So if we teach students about their trauma and that their feelings are actually normal, then they'll be more open to themselves and accepting of themselves and the students around them. And the final step is to have students practice mindfulness through mental and physical exercises. So, say we teach the 9th graders about the science behind mental health and ACEs. Maybe some listen to it, maybe some actually use it to change their life. And some others kind of ignore it. Maybe they're just too enveloped in their own problems to really pay attention in school. And then when you get into 10th grade, you can have students practicing mindfulness through mental and physical exercises, such as those students are doing in their classroom. And now they're forced to become aware of their own thoughts. So if they didn't want to face them before, now through being mindful, they're more aware of their own thoughts. They can control their emotions better, and they know how to just approach people and establish healthy relationships with people for a longer amount of time. And you can see that this works. I can't see it too well from here, but over 60% of high school and middle school students who participate in this program called D-Mind, which stands for Dynamic Mind Exercises, created by the Neuroja Institute. 60% through just breathing exercises, through mindful action, and through centering. They reported that they were happier at school, that they were better managing their stress, anxiety, and that they were more in control of their actions. And if you look at the left where the red is, those are elementary students. They report even higher percentages of increasing their happiness, their I can't read it from here, but just all around their emotional regulation. They're more centered and they're more capable human beings moving forward. And we see students self-report this, and teachers even report this too. They see 90% of the teachers self-reported that their students were better at managing their emotions, stress, anger, anxiety in class. So, in this program, you can do 5-minute sessions before a class. You can do 10-minute. You can do 20 minutes, just once a day, and it creates this much of an improvement in our livelihood. And you can see it in class. So the teachers not only have happier students to work with, but they have less problems to deal with in all. And the last thing I wanted to suggest was that our school should, if we do implement these type of programs, we should also survey our students on the exact exactly what's surveyed here, how they control their emotions, how they maintain healthy relationships, so that we can see how our school is progressing. And we can take it year by year and see what's working and see what's not. And that's it. Thank you.
Mathis, this was really, really good information. And I felt your passion, and obviously you have done so much research, and you've certainly given us something to aim for. And we thank you for being here tonight and sharing. Again, I applaud.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Okay. The next thing on our agenda is requests to speak, but before we get started with that, I want to respond to Mr. Fenderson's submission to the Smithfield Times and the Tidewater News. First of all, he said that his First Amendment right, his freedom to speech, was violated. And I just want to let the community know that the letter wasn't received within the time guidelines. And also, there was nowhere in the letter that asked this to be read as public comments. It was a list of questions asking me as board chair to respond to his questions in writing. And that's exactly what we did. So I hope that brings a little bit more of understanding as to what happened with those board comments or his submission to the board. Okay, do we have board comments? I mean, not board comments, but community.
Request to speak.
Request to
Yes.
speak.
So let me start out by saying, in accordance with policy BDDH-E, citizens scheduled on the agenda will be permitted 5 minutes maximum time for their presentation. Delegations will be requested to limit their speakers to 2. Persons speaking are asked to be specific, state the issues for the board's consideration, and attach a copy of your prepared remarks. The school board requests that speakers refrain from making references to specific individuals and that any matter related to a specific student or individual be discussed in a closed meeting. So the first one that I did receive was an email. So it's from Miss Erin Park. So I'm going to read that one first and start the timer. So Miss Erin Park.
Before you start, we don't have a quorum right now. Mr. Wilson had to step out.
Okay, yes.
And so we want to check on him.
Okay.
So let's have an adjourn until we find out
Yep, make sure
exactly
everything's
what's
okay,
going on.
yes.
We'll see how long it takes. I wouldn't stop. He doesn't want to leave because you can't hear him when they speak.
Okay, so the first one, again, like I said, was an email submission, so I'm going to start that one out first. All right. Miss Erin Park, 1501 Turner Drive, Smithville, Virginia. As a parent of a rising kindergarten and fifth grader in Smithville, Virginia, I am very concerned about the well-being of my children if schools do not reopen in the fall to a more normal schedule. I have heard a lot of chatter going around about possibly only having children go to school 2 days a week. For my children, that will continue to be a detriment to their education and their mental health. The last 3 months have been difficult for all, and I know you understand that. But when my children are so upset because they are unable to go to school to see their teachers and their friends in a social setting, it is heartbreaking. The emotional toll of my husband and I trying to homeschool our children when we are not trained to be teachers is tough on us and the kids. The kids don't want to be home learning from us. They want to be at school in an engaging environment with their friends and teachers. My children are asking every day when can they go back to school, and right now I don't have a very good answer for them. I have a few points below I would like you to consider when making decisions for all students for the fall 2021 school year. First, let parents decide. We as parents know our children's needs best, and we can assess the risks for them daily. Schools should be free to provide the full range of education services to students, and as parents, we should be allowed to select which of those services we are comfortable. Families that are comfortable with in-person 5 days a week instruction can send their students to school. Those who are not can select virtual learning options. Second, virtual learning. The governor's guidelines rely heavily on virtual education, despite the fact that the virtual education has been failing our students for months. Since the pandemic began, our students have been through different variations of virtual learning schedules and trying to figure out what worked best. But none of it really worked, and my kids suffered. By the beginning of June, my then fourth grader was not interested in any Zoom calls. I understand all the school districts were doing the best that they could in the situation, but if virtual learning is to be used in the fall, the school districts really need to figure out the best options to engage our children. 3, economic impact. The current guidelines will inhibit the economic recovery as many parents, teachers rely on children to be in an in-school environment in order to work and provide for their families. I was fortunate enough that I was able to work from home for the last 3 months, but it was a struggle for me professionally, and it was a struggle for my kids as well. Requiring one parent to stay home to oversee the virtual education of their children will prevent parents from returning to the workforce and slow the recovery. 4, one-size-fits-all. The governor's guidelines should not impose a one-size-fits-all approach on Virginia. While some social distancing guidelines make sense in some schools with COVID-19 has had the highest impact, where COVID-19 has had the highest impacts, it does not make sense to impose those requirements on schools in other areas that have had little to no impact from COVID-19. Thank you for listening and considering my comments and concerns. Okay, so that was Miss Erin Park. All right. Next, we have Mr. Ed Easter.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a while. Everybody's living in jeopardy at the present time. I do want to thank this board for allowing me to speak and permitting me to be here. And young man, I want you to know that was fantastic. Well done. This board, this school system has got the biggest challenge they've probably ever faced. We have been very, very productive. We've been very effective, and we've been very profound in what we've accomplished over the last 5 years. I want to thank this board, the school administration, the teachers, the supporting staff, and especially the children for their actions and performance in our school system. My only suggestion is you listen to the science and the facts. You don't listen to people that are telling you to take some bleach or it's going to go away in a short period of time. It'll just disappear. That's not the facts, folks, and that's not the science behind it. We do not know how deadly this stuff is yet. We know it's bad. We know it's real bad. And anybody that's telling you or trying to tell you that it doesn't affect young people have absolutely lost their bloody minds. These are our children. They are our future. And we need to do everything we can to give them an education. But we have to do it safely. And if we don't do it safely, we're going to lose some of them. Additional facts are coming out now that show damage being done to the young folks. We've even had youngsters in the 4 or 5 age bracket pass away because of it. So we really don't know what we've got here. So far, Isle of Wight's been pretty safe from an overall standpoint, but we have been touched and we have been affected by this disease. And it's not going to go away. And anyone trying to tell you that is not giving you the straight up facts. He's talking political talk, has nothing to do with reality whatsoever. I really want to congratulate this board, this administration, the staff and the students for the accomplishments that we've had over the period of time that we've been here for the last 5 or 6 years. The only thing I can beg of you is to use your head and your heart to take care of our most precious asset that we've got in this county, because they're going to be here after we're gone if we take care of them. So thank you for your work, and God bless you on what you're trying to do.
Thank you, Mr. Easter.
Okay. Next, we have Mr. Albert Burkhart.
Never interrupt somebody who's doing something important. Excellent, thank you. Dr. Thornton, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's a little bit sticky there, but that's all right. Albert Burkhart, Carrollton. I'm just here for one reason. I put in everybody's place something for the Isle of Wight County Fair to remind you it's coming up in September. I'm on the committee. I'm not speaking for the chairman or the committee. Danny Byram told me that I could speak as a private citizen. But we just wanted to tell you that as of right now, the fair is still a go. Now, that could change. The board of Supervisors is going to make a decision probably on the 16th. If they don't, we, the committee, can probably hold out until the 1st of August. It has to do with contracts, 60 days in advance, 45 days, and that sort of thing. So the 1st of August is pretty much our own internal drop dead date. But as of right now, we're thinking the fair is going to go, and I just wanted to let you all know that that's good news, because you all know, as teachers and educators in the school board, that the fair is very, very popular with the students. You all know we bus a whole lot of them out there, and it's wonderful. We have virtually half a day dedicated to them. So that's the only reason I wanted to be here tonight, was just to let you know that the fair is still scheduled as of right now. Now, if for some reason it gets canceled, hold on to this, because it's going to be a rare thing, because it's got a date on it. We can't use it next year, and a lot of people collect these. And so, you know, you might find people trying to give you $100 for one of these things, so hang on to that. And also, these are refrigerator magnets, and they cost a lot of money. So if you don't have a refrigerator, if you have one of the old ice boxes, you know, they don't stick on the side, so you can give the thing back to me. Or if you want more, I've got more. So Dr. Thornton, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, next we have Herb DeGroft.
Madam Chair, before I take my position, I thought Mr. and Mrs. Kramer had an opportunity to speak too.
They're signed up after you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Herb DeGroff, 15411 Mill Swamp Road. Madam Chair and IWCS board members, I'm addressing what in my opinion are violations of school laws and board policies found in 22.1-279.8 and your policy EB by your only employee, Dr. Thornton, for systemic racial discrimination and violation of the Smithfield High School Salutatorian's constitutional right to freedom of speech. On 28 May, the Board of Supervisors had their consent agenda to vote and later did on their emergency operations plan to be in compliance with Virginia law. This board is to do an annual review of IWCS's school crisis emergency management and medical emergency response plans to be in compliance with the aforementioned law and your policy. You've never reviewed these plans while Dr. Thornton's been superintendent, and I know because there's no evidence on any board agenda or in board minutes that this board was going to review these plans. As well, the annual school safety audit results have not been made public within 90 days of their completion as provided for by law, which has not been done either. By law and the state superintendent's directive, Dr. Thornton is to certify this annually by logging into the survey manager and providing his initials that they have been done. When is this board and Dr. Thornton going to do your duty as regards the safety and security of our students and staff? They're not important. I'm volunteering to act for you to review the school's crisis plans and be a part of your safety audit team so you can finally comply with the law. Just ask me. My second concern is what I believe is systemic racial discrimination in IWCS's administration since Dr. Thornton and this board have been together. The strategic plan for IWCS is the blueprint on how the administration works by establishing their priorities and goals, particularly in the EEO arena. When I was a board member, I worked on the 2010-15 strategic plan when we established goal number 3 to recruit, hire, and retain a highly qualified, diverse staff. We had shared beliefs that diversity is valued and enriches the educational process. Dr. Thornton and then the all-white central office staff changed all that, and the 2017 board voted approving that strategic plan on 12 October 2017. Purposely left the word diversity out, which they did, and you did not consider these goals valuable for IWCS going forward, obviously. Here are examples of discrimination, yes, racism under Dr. Thornton and the executive staff. Number 1, August 2015, all 3 white students were put back in Smithfield High from the alternative school, while 3 minority students were left in the alternative school. Action by the board members approved this. 2, special education teacher budgeted to teach SPED students in the alternative school for the 2018 school year. Dr. Thornton used the money for something else, and therefore 3 minority students were assigned to CSEP in Suffolk without a SPED teacher for them in the alternative school. 3, an executive director and former principal had several minority employees file grievances and lawsuits against the board after becoming their supervisor and giving them poor evaluations, subsequently having them either fired or demoted, even though the year before their supervisor had given satisfactory evaluations. How did this executive director get their position when they ended up supervising their spouse? A big no-no. Did whiteness influence Dr. Thornton to say okay? 4, a qualified minority female with a master's degree was denied the coordinator educational technologies and communication position when it was given to the HR executive director's son who'd only been a soccer referee. Number 5, Dr. Joyce McDowell, former principal, was denied executive director secondary schools position that was created by Dr. Thornton, it appears, for his white buddy in Mecklenburg who got a call, I understand, to apply for the job, and he got it. 6, 2 white principals just finished their first year as principals who did not meet minimum requirements of the job posting when there were qualified minority administrators in the county who didn't meet them, I believe. I propose a new division leadership chart, which I will give you, Madam Chairman, in just a few minutes. This new position ensures diversity and equity is a priority objective to be employed through the decision-making process in the IWCS administration. My third concern is the dastardly act by Dr. Thornton in failing to give the salutatorian an opportunity to give his speech unfettered on mental health awareness in the educational environment, even omitting his 5 sentences in the virtual high school graduation. And I understand from one of his parents, Dr. Thornton was the person requiring Masseth to rewrite his remarks several times. What did we see in the Smithfield Times? A minority administrator taking the fall for suppressing Mathis's freedom of speech. What's in his future with IWCS's administration under our superintendent? Board, know the truth. To minimize the injustice done to Mathis by having his freedom of speech suppressed, he was invited to read his speech at the Carrollton Civic League. The citizen was so impressed they gave him $100 toward his
Time.
education. And I gave him an appreciation certificate from all of us veterans for standing tall for America. God bless him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeGraw.
Mr. DeGroff, you'll need to leave the package here. Well, she's not supposed to touch it for 24 hours.
The post office says there isn't anything wrong with stuffing through the post office, and ain't nothing wrong with that. And the second time you try it.
I'm going by the CDC regulations. So, Ms. Carr, I would touch it. No cussing, thank you. All right, next we have Mr. and Mrs. Kramer.
She needs politics.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am Ellen Kramer, this is Keith Kramer, and we're parents of Mathis Kramer. Mathis was invited to give his salutatorian speech, which would be taped for the virtual graduation ceremonies. After the first taping, he was told it was too dark. After a revision, he was told that if he didn't make major changes to it, there would be no salutatorian speech in the graduation. We made attempts to get advice from the school counselor and the vice principal on what exactly needed to be changed, but was told they couldn't tell him what to say because it was his speech to give. He gave up and made a very short speech, completely void of his original message. Administration said it was perfect. I called Vice Principal Ms. Cuffy Neville. She told me that the salutatorian speech was not the platform to be used to challenge the school's policies on mental health education. They were educators, not doctors or therapists, and he should go to school board meeting to address his concerns. I told her that I thought she was missing the point of Mathis's speech. He was challenging not only the schools, but his classmates, who are the future's educators, policymakers, and parents, to advocate for mental health education to be included into the school's curriculum. In light of all of the problems Mathis's generation faces, including current pandemic, social unrest, political divisiveness, climate change, drug and alcohol addiction, to name just a few, mental health awareness in our youth is more important than ever. His speech was not unlike other valedictorian or salutatorian speeches. Like others, he was challenging his school and his peers to make positive changes in the world. He wanted his peers to find solutions to the incline of depression and suicide rate and the violence amongst youth. I asked Ms. Cuffy Neville if the administration would consider putting Mathis's original speech back in the virtual graduation. She said she'd talk to Mr. Coleman about it, either she or he would call me back that day. I never heard from either one. At this point, Mathis wanted to drop the matter and just let them air his short speech, which we were told that was perfect. He revised it 3 times and taped it twice. And the final one, he just gave up and said 6 sentences thanking his friends and his parents, and it was totally void of his original message. So they taped his third revision and told him that it was perfect. It's what they were looking for. So I tried to talk to Ms. Neville about it, and she pretty much dropped the ball. Well, at this point, Mathis wanted to drop the matter and just let them air his short speech. And as you are all probably aware, not only was his accepted speech not included in the video,
1 minute.
they didn't even recognize him as a salutatorian. We assumed this was a vindictive and immature decision. We were told by Mr. Thornton and Mr. Coleman that it was an accident. Although we appreciate Mr. Coleman's apology, we don't believe it was an accident, nor do we believe that he was the one at fault. His only fault was accepting to be the fall guy, which is understandable since he would be soon leaving. We believe someone had to tell IT specialist Mr. Elliott to put this amazingly well-constructed video together to take Mathis out of the video, which he had to follow orders. He went through great lengths to tape this twice. It was edited, I'm sure watched by several people, and you cannot get me to believe that this was an accident.
Time.
It was omitted on purpose.
Thank you so much,
We were told by
Ms.
Mr.
Kramer.
Coleman and Mr. Thornton that an investigation would be made and we would be notified who did this, and Mathis would get an apology from that person. We appreciate the inclusion of his original speech in the final video flash drive being sent to the graduates, but we have yet to hear from Mr. Thornton about the results of the investigation. Why would the school take the voice away from an intelligent young man, a product of their educational system, who wants to make a positive change in the world for his peers?
Thank you, Ms. Kramer.
I believe that's it. That's all.
Okay, that concludes the request to speak. And we're moving on. I don't believe there's any committee reports. So we're going to move on to the June financial report. Ms. Rachel?
Good evening. You have before you the financial presentation for June, and I'll entertain any questions you may have.
You have any? Okay. The only thing that when I was looking over the report, I know last year this time we had spent 99.8%?
Yes, ma'am.
And this time it's 98%. So how does that work out? Because I know July 1st is the beginning of another fiscal year.
We have actually almost 2 months, really until August 15th,
Okay.
to pay all of our final bills. So they are encumbered. You see the encumbrances totaling $673,000. So as we finalize everything, we will actually have a true year end once the auditors come in, and we've done this through August.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next is the transportation report. Is that you, Mr. Coleman?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to be providing a transportation report. At this time, there's been no changes from last month. Are there any questions concerning transportation at this time?
I was just thinking about the fuel contract. I know we signed an annual contract.
Yes, ma'am.
And I wouldn't think we spent all the money that we would have if schools had been open.
Yes,
So are we responsible? How does that work? Is it okay that we didn't spend all that?
It is, if we didn't spend all of the actual funds, I have to go to finance and check in on the answer of exactly where the funds are and how the contract actually works at this time.
Okay, I didn't know, like, when we sign a contract, do they expect a certain amount to be spent? And if it's not, does it go on next year's, I know we're going to sign another contract with them.
Absolutely. We are going to sign another contract just to make sure that we're ready for August if we should decide to
Right.
go back full force. But Rachel, could you help me?
We actually sign a contract that gives us a rate for
Okay,
each
it's a
gallon.
rate. It's not an
That is
amount, it's just the
correct.
rate. So then it
So
doesn't matter how much?
It does not matter how much we use, and there is no limit, so.
Okay.
Other than the fact that we've budgeted a certain amount based on the number of gallons we think we're going to use for
Well,
that
that makes
year.
perfect
And if
sense.
we end up needing more, then we have an opportunity to do a budget transfer within line items, or if we need a categorical transfer, we would bring that to you. But it's a price per gallon.
Can you call him to order?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you
Call
call
him
the
to
meeting
order.
to order since he's harassing me?
Call the meeting to order?
Called DeGroff to
Yeah.
order.
Call Mr. DeGroff to order. He is harassing me
Okay.
and violating my space.
And interrupting the meeting.
Thank you. You have to call to order first.
Okay.
And now he's wandering the building.
Right. Now he's trespassing.
Well, it looks like we have someone taking care of this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, next is the facilities update. Is that you, Mr. Coleman, as well?
That is me. Mr. Cooper, I just showed me how to use this.
There you go.
All right, we have the facilities update, just a review of exactly what we're going to go over. The Smithfield High School Media Center, the Windsor High School Facilities Update, cafeteria, furniture at Carrollton and at Windsor Elementary School, and the safety and security, and the division security audit program. Here you see the pictures of the newly renovated Smithfield High School Media Center. As you can see, the Smithfield High School is, at this particular time, the Media Center is 60% finalized. You can see for some of the rafters and different things that are going on. So we have 40 more percent to go. The final doorknob should be screwed on and ready to go on August 15th. Once again, it'll be August 15th. At Windsor High School, we have some facilities upgrades going on also. As you can see, we had a new set of bleachers to go in at Windsor High School, and also a cement pad that goes under it. If you can see on the picture on the left, you can see where the new bleachers went into. And the picture from the front in the middle, you can see the overall structure of the fence line, the actual brick, and a far off picture from the far right to show the whole entire baseball stadium. All of those were new upgrades for this year.
That looks great.
Yes, it does. It does. Windsor High School athletics have really put a lot of effort into that. Now, as you can see on the left and the right, this is the new cafeteria furniture for Carrollton Elementary School and the new cafeteria furniture for the Windsor Elementary School. And as you can see, all the cafeteria tables have the emblem on them from that particular school logo. We have the Cardinals on the left and the Hornets on the right. I wanted to bring your attention, ma'am, the safety and security. This is the Division Crisis Management Team, and these are the actual meeting schedule for the Division Crisis Management Team. We'll be meeting on August 11th, 2020, November 3rd, 2020, and February 2nd, 2021. Now, the members of the Division Crisis Team are some of the same members from last year, but we did pick up 2 new members due to transfers and new individuals moving to the county. There's Mr. Will Drury, for the Emergency Services Coordinator, and Mr. Pat Humphreys, the Chief of Fire and Rescue, who's replacing Chief Terwilliger from last year. And that is the safety and security. And the last slide, ma'am, will be the Division Threat Assessment Team. The schedule for the Division Threat Assessment Team will meet on August 6th, 2020, October 29th, 2020, January 28th, 2021. Then the Division Threat Assessment Team, these are the individuals that serve on that team. And last, ma'am, it will be the School Safety Audit Program. This is just a rundown of the dates that these items are due, and the items will be taken. All of them they start in August, and these items are been worked on at this time. Ma'am, if there are any other questions concerning safety or school safety?
Mr. Wilson, do you have any questions?
None at this time.
Ms. Perkins? And I don't have any questions either. Thank you so much. Okay, next we have food service. and the technology purchase request.
Cheryl's getting the microphone, so there you go.
Thank you and good evening. This is just information to let you know that the Child Nutrition Department is planning to use part of our fund balance and spend about $27,000 to purchase 34 tablets for our food service department. As you may be aware, we have about 10 tablets now. Most of them don't work. They're at least 8 to 10 years old. Even under normal conditions, we have the grab-and-go breakfast. This is being done manually. The food service workers are having to actually write down the student's number based on the number the student is giving them, having to do checks. And so with the tablets, they can actually key in the number, and it'll pop up and say, yes, this is the student, whereas if the student gave a bad number, we've reported wrong information, and we're not tracking probably free and reduced meals so we can get reimbursed for it. So it's going to make things a lot more efficient. And coming into this next school year, not knowing what we're going to come into, there may be a lot of serving to the classrooms. So we can use more food service workers to actually have tablets go into the classrooms, key in numbers, and just be more efficient and cost productive. Any questions?
Things are going to look a little differently.
They
aren't
are.
they? Yes. Okay. I don't have any questions. Questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Elliott. Next on the agenda is the appointment of compliance officers.
And that is me as well. This is just annually we let you know who our compliance officers are for the division. I am the compliance officer for the division, and with the retirement of Ralph Freeman this year, Clint Walters is now our alternative compliance officer. So we just want to make you aware.
Okay.
And this is an action item.
Okay, so we need a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the report be accepted as adopted.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Do you see it, Ms. Perkins?
Is yours working, Ms. Perkins?
I'm finding it, trying to.
Mr. Cooprider's coming to the rescue.
Where is it?
If you want to give me a verbal, I can.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the VSBA delegate representative and alternate. And this right here is, in the past, the tradition is for the chair to be the representative and the vice chair to be there in case the chair can't be there.
Correct.
That would be me, and then it would be Ms. Perkins.
Yes. And this is also action item.
And this is action. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move that
Okay.
we accept this report.
Okay, so we have a motion for me to be the VSBA delegate representative and you, Ms. Perkins, to be the alternate. We have a motion. Do you second? Okay?
Thank you. All right. Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda is the school board clerk code of conduct. And this as well is an action item.
Madam Chair, I move that the code of conduct be accepted.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Oh, shoot. Okay. Thank you.
Did it go through, Ms.?
Yes.
Okay. Next on the agenda is approval of the superintendent designees for the school year 2021. This is also an action item.
Madam Chair, move the school board adopt the 17 point.
Okay?
Yeah, it's all in the glass.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion for the approval of the superintendent designees, and we also have a second. Okay, next on the agenda is the annual discipline, crime, and violence report to VDOE.
Good evening. I'm Colleen Loud. I'm the Director of Assessment and Accountability. Sorry, I'm talking to your back. You have before you the Discipline, Crime, and Violence report that was submitted to VDOE, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I looked at the report. I don't have any questions. I would think it's lower than last year's based on our last 3 months of school.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in 20 years from now, we'll look at this report and think, well, we did really well that year. Okay. That was an information item. Next on the agenda is annual fundraising report.
Madam Chair, you have before you the fundraisers that took place in all the schools this past school year. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I have no questions with that.
Madam Chair, I move that the fundraising report be accepted.
Okay,
Yeah.
and this is public information, so that's good. And next on the agenda is the resource officer memo of understanding. There were no changes to this from previous years. This is the same, is that correct?
It is, but there's a new policy.
I read
just
that
got sent
policy.
down. And since we have not reviewed it, and it is past July 1, we have to have a public hearing before you approve it. So we plan on announcing the public hearing at our next meeting, and you can approve it at the August meeting as well, after the public hearing. So we'll have public hearing and public input at the August meeting.
Okay, and next month this time is when we vote on that policy, correct?
Yes.
Because this is the first read for tonight.
Right. So what I recommend is you have the public hearing, and if you feel like you need more time after that public hearing, you can postpone the vote. But if you feel like you can still make your vote at that time, then I recommend you move forward in August.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Okay, we have next the COVID-19 update. Dr. Thornton?
Okay, I do not have much tonight because we are meeting July 23rd to hear all the committee reports, and on the 30th for the board to vote and decide how we will open, whether it's A/B or whether it's 5 days a week. And with either one of those options, we've been trying to make it very clear we will still have a virtual online option for any student that wants that, any family that wants that. I do want to announce, and I've given you a copy of the Alawite County Schools Summer School Health Plan. This was actually completed today by the committee, and we reviewed it. This will be on our website tomorrow, and it will be sent to the Virginia Department of Education tomorrow. And the only requirement is that we do submit it. They don't officially approve it, and then we can open summer school, which opens on Monday. So you can read through that if you have any questions, but we'll be doing a similar plan with a little more detail once we open fully in the fall. And we'll also have to have an instructional plan for the fall. We did not have to turn in an instructional plan for summer school.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Perkins?
No.
Mr. Wilson? Any questions?
No question at this
Thank
time.
you. Okay, next we need action on the closed session items, the personnel report.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the personnel report as presented.
Okay. Okay, next we need to have a motion to approve the consent agenda,
Wait,
the meeting minutes, the donations,
We
and,
have the.
or the
second-
disciplinary.
Yes.
Sorry. Turned the page too soon. Okay, I need a motion to approve the disciplinary meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the disciplinary minutes.
Second?
Second.
So, Ms. Carr, I think you have to second it because she's going to abstain.
Okay, second.
Okay.
Okay, and now we have where we need a motion for the adoption of the
I'm
consent
sorry.
agenda.
I'm sorry. Ms. Perkins?
Ms.
This-
Perkins?
This is the one that you did not attend.
Oh,
So
then I
you-
refrain.
So, yeah, so I'm going to,
Well, do we have a quorum for that then?
yes,
still
because there
do.
was only 3 and the 2 of you did.
Okay,
So I'm going to hit revote, remove the vote, so that you guys can do it again.
okay.
Okay, so take a vote. Here we go. You can go ahead.
Move the
It's the disciplinary meeting.
disciplinary meeting
Minutes.
minutes
Yes.
be accepted.
I can't vote on that, can I?
You
No.
abstain from
You
it.
just
There's an
abstain.
option there,
That's
there's a
what I'm
choice there that
saying.
says
Right.
abstain. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Wilson, because I'll need you to vote again, Mr. Wilson.
I'm sorry.
On the machine, on the iPad.
You got it?
No, you have to do it on the
Okay.
iPad.
Vote on the
Oh,
iPad.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Got it.
Thank you, got it, yep.
Now, we are going to have a motion to approve the adoption of the consent agenda. The meeting minutes, donations, and financials.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Okay, next on the agenda is the policy updates and revisions. So we have the policies for the second read, which is an action item tonight.
Madam Secretary, I move that the policies for second read be accepted.
Second.
All right, one sec, I'm coming. That was Mr. Wilson and Ms. Perkins. Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the policies for the first read. There were several of them. Were there any discussion on any of these? I do know this is the policy you were referring to earlier.
Yes.
There was one of those. And I did notice one of the policies had an update for your responsibilities of giving like a report on the need for teachers and did you? It was
Yes.
like that is showing, in my opinion, the serious challenge of the shortage in educators. I mean, it's been a nationwide problem, but now it's even being part of policy to inform the board, the community.
We still have 3 openings at Westside Elementary School. Down to 2, I'm sorry.
Down to two.
But in the 5 years I've been here, we've never had difficulty filling elementary positions or any positions really. So this is a new experience.
It is. It's coming home. I've heard for a while that it's a national problem, but we haven't really seen it, and now we're seeing it here. Okay. Regulations and exhibits, that was informational. Any questions with that? Okay. Okay, now we're going to move to board member requests and comments. Mr. Wilson, did you have anything? Any board comments?
Not at this time, thank you.
Ms. Perkins?
I have nothing.
Okay, I just wanted to share that a couple of weeks ago, Valerie Butler, who is the president of the NAACP, asked to meet with Dr. Thornton and me to discuss some concerns. So we met with her and a few others that she brought with her, and the biggest concern was the low percentage of black teachers and administrators in our division. And Dr. Thornton shared some things that we have been doing, that we're continuing to do to address this concern. And it is not just a local concern. Their concerns are really, ones that are nationwide. And Dr. Thornton really explained in depth some things that we're doing. And we had some good discussions, answered many of their questions, and we're going to meet again soon. Our goal really is to create a task force to help address some of the concerns that were shared, and we'll keep everyone updated as we meet. Did you want to add anything to that, Dr. Thornton?
No, just that next month, I'll be giving a full report on some of the things that we've done in-house for equity issues, and we started that in March when we gave the board a presentation right before the shutdown, and then more in the lines of how to attract minority candidates to our school system, and like you said, it's a problem throughout Virginia and throughout the nation. But some strategies, some things that have been done at the state level, and just to share where we might move forward with a task force.
And I might add, this was also a point of emphasis.
Talk in the
last
mic,
year.
please. Make sure you talk in the mic.
This was also a point of emphasis last year when we went through the budget and talked about priorities for this year. So it's been a problem for us for several years, and we've been trying to address.
Absolutely. It's nothing new. We've been talking about this. So any other questions by anyone?
Madam Chair, if I
Okay,
might.
sure.
So we do have the meeting scheduled July 23rd to
Yes.
inform you guys. One item we would like to add to that is a resolution for the school board regarding contract delivery methods, and in particular, construction management at risk. If that is an option for us in the future, whether it's the Hardy project or any project, you have to first pass a resolution to allow that as an option. So our attorney will be looking through the resolution and providing information for us on the 23rd as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's nothing else. Meeting is adjourned.